A very warm welcome to RTV News in English. I am Gloria Mutesi with the latest headlines for our viewers in Rwanda and around the world. The government of Rwanda has again warned the general public that stringent measures could be adopted to fight the spread of the pandemic if people continue to be complacent towards the existing preventive measures. The Ministry of Education says that the remaining problems in the school feeding program will be solved by the second term of this academic year. The Unity Club in Rumuri today visited the survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi who live in the Impinganzima nursing home in Huye district to wish them happy holidays. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this broadcast. Starting us off tonight, the government of Rwanda has again warned the general public that stringent measures could be adopted to fight the spread of COVID-19, including another total lockdown if people continue to be complacent towards the existing preventive measures. This comes as the infection rate continues to steadily increase as the holiday season approaches. Stationary begins our coverage tonight.
During a virtual press conference, Cabinet members showed how the current increase in COVID-19 infection figures is very similar to what happened in the country last year during the same period, and at that time it resulted in a total lockdown. In general, people have noticed that every day the figures we announce of COVID-19 infections keep rising. In November, we usually had 15, 10 or even less infections per day. But towards the end of November and the beginning of December, things started changing, and yesterday there were 50 fresh infections, something we had not seen for some time. The infection in general has also once again exceeded the 5 people per 100,000 mark. The minister therefore gave a dire warning. In general, our findings in the provinces show us that things are still fine because the figures are not alarming. But there are pockets with rising numbers, which is why the government decided to adopt new measures to deal with it, lest we end up with another total lockdown in January like what happened last year in December as figures steadily increased, such that by January the sick were so many in hospitals, some of them in critical condition. Then there is the problem of those who refuse to get vaccinated. We cannot have vaccines only for people to refuse to be vaccinated and put those who are vaccinated at risk as we idly stand by. We will take the blame if anyone comes forward and proves that the reason they are not vaccinated is because there are no vaccines, which is why in rural areas we immediately inform local residents when vaccines are available so that they can come and get their jab, such that when the day comes when only the vaccinated are able to go to different places and access different services, it doesn't become a problem for you. A person has every right to decide not to get vaccinated, but he or she does not have the right to infect others, nor do they have the right to put their own life at risk, and as the government it is our responsibility to prevent any harm that may come upon our citizens. The government therefore urges you to get vaccinated, to protect yourself and others so that we can stop this pandemic. Then there is the matter of trade and the buying frenzy that usually accompanies the holiday season, resulting in people acting as if there is no pandemic.
We ask traders to ensure that social distancing is respected, that hand washing stations are operational, and require that their customers wear their face masks properly. It has become clear Omicron variant spreads very quickly. Also, we want traders to respect the agreement we had with them, that they are to ensure that they are people to enforce the preventive measures, dressed in yellow overalls so that they can also be identified, regardless of whether they pay them themselves or they are youth volunteers.
Officials from the Rwanda Development Board have also urged those in the tourism sector to respect the recently announced measures by the government in the fight against the pandemic. The National Police, meanwhile, has confirmed that people had become very lax towards even the simplest of the preventive measures in place, with figures from between the 5th and the 14th of this month of December showing that close to 60,000 people were caught not wearing a face mask. More than 7,000 were found moving around during curfew hours, and slightly more than 1,000 were arrested drinking in bars that were not authorized to operate.
The Ministry of Education says that the remaining problems in the school feeding program will be solved by the second term of this academic year. As Innocent Mugabo reports, more than 3.6 million primary and secondary school children are fed at school through the school feeding program.
This academic year, the school feeding program has expanded to primary schools after its launch in secondary schools in 2019. Dr. Maria Valentin, the Minister of Education, stresses that some of the challenges the program has faced include the low budget that was allocated to it this year.
This academic year, we were allocated a budget of about 27 billion Rwanda francs, meant to feed about 3.6 million children. It's not enough, and we still have a gap of over 15 billion Rwanda francs. So the Ministry of Education is advocating together with the Ministry of Finance for the government's contribution to be fully available. The other thing is that parents are also supposed to contribute, but we also need their participation in seeing that the incomplete kitchens being built get completed. We plan to solve all this before the beginning of the second term.
The statements were made during the ministers' meeting with the members of the Parliamentary Committee on Unity, Human Rights and the Fight Against Genocide. These are the issues raised by the committee after making a review about the school feeding program. In addition to the government's role, the committee also found that some parents do not fulfill their responsibilities properly, as explained by its chairperson, Honorable Mukasine Marie Claire.
Komisiyo rero isanga hari ingamba zikwiriye gufatwa.
The committee finds it necessary for measures to be taken by all the institutions responsible for urging parents to take part in this school feeding program, because some do not contribute and then they end up failing the program.
Gatabazi Jean-Marie Vianney, the Minister of Local Government, points out that the establishment of a school feeding committee for each school is one way to be used for the program to make progress. This should be made of teachers to represent the school, parents' representatives and local representatives, so the committee will help in making school feeding campaigns among the parents. And these will also be in charge of the meals prepared through making research on what is best grown in their area, as to also cut costs. To date, more than 3.6 million primary and secondary school children are fed at school through the school feeding program. Innocent Mugabo, RTV News.
Away from Kigali, survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi who live in the Iminganzima nursing home in Huye district say the fact that members of the Unity Club in Rwanda came to visit them with the intention of wishing them a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year gives them hope and strengthens their resolve to not become depressed, because the visits are just as important to them as any visit a parent gets from their child. As the festive season is approaching, the elderly people that live in these nursing homes say the visit by the members of the Huye Unity Club in Rwanda has made them happy. We're very glad to see them. We feel like we have been remembered at a time we lost everything. They make us feel alive again after we lost all our people. When they come to visit us, it makes us so glad. We even dance with the little energy that we have. When you have someone that thinks of you this way, it gives us great joy. These genocide survivors have been living in this home of the elderly since 2017. The coordinator of the Iminganzima home says that they do whatever possible for them to help them live out the elderly life in a good way. We help them in their day-to-day activities, provide proper hygiene, medical services, food and every other thing they might need. We have several people here who are responsible for making their life easy and happy. The members of the Unity Club brought various Christmas gifts, including beddings and clothing for the elderly living in this home. The minister in charge of emergency management, who is also the vice chairperson of the Unity Club in Rwanda, notes that visiting the elderly genocide survivors who lost all their loved ones is an important way of comforting them. This is our responsibility for us as Unity Club in Rwanda and Avega to put together these elderly people who lost everything and everyone during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. They lost their children, partners, families, and friends. As they grow older, they need extra care, so when we come to visit them, it brings warmth and comfort to them. We bring them Christmas and New Year's gifts as well. It's a culture we have as the Unity Club in Rwanda.
Mu mpera z'umwaka tunabagenera impano za Noheli na Bonani kugira ngo bongere basusuruke bishime.
Impenganzima Nursing Home is home to 98 elderly genocide survivors living in it, 6 of whom are men. Now, following the government's introduction of new gas prices, some gas wholesalers have opted to become retailers. The Rwanda Utilities and Regulatory Authority reiterates that no one should hike gas prices because all the challenges have been thoroughly gone through. A cross-section of gas wholesalers have now decided to do retail after choosing not to sell the gas to small businesses. They are now selling at the new prices set by the government, which is 1,260 Rwanda francs per kilo.
We used to buy it at 16,200, but with the new prices, we have bought it at 15,120.
Some of the small retail business owners who sell gas say they bought the gas at a high price and hence why they can't sell it at the new set prices by the government because they would be operating in losses.
I used to buy it at 1,320 per kilo, which doesn't make sense for me to sell a kilo at 1,260. Perhaps when my stock gets done, that's when I will start using the new prices.
Some wholesale gas dealers say they've chosen to sell it directly to consumers in order to start selling at the government-approved prices. Retail gas traders say they're concerned over the potential scarcity of gas after their stocks run out.
Like I had told you, we don't have gas to sell because we also couldn't get the gas from where we normally get our stock from. When the stock we have gets done, we don't know where we shall get it from because the places where we import it from have not yet started selling at the new prices set.
The Rwanda Utilities and Regulatory Authority calls upon all gas traders to not hike prices more than the set price. RURA's Dr. Nsabimana Ernest says those caught will be punished because all the obstacles that these traders point out have been examined and have found to be unfounded.
There shouldn't be any excuses of whether other people had already bought the gas before. By the time we set these prices, we had already examined all issues by different organs and people, be it the importers, wholesalers, and retailers. They were all consulted, so failure to observe these new prices, there are penalties in place.
The new price of gas has started to be implemented at 1,260 Rwanda francs per kilo, which means that 3 kilos of gas cost 3,780 Rwanda francs, 4 kilos costing 7,560 Rwanda francs, 12 kilos costing 15,120 Rwanda francs, 15 kilos costing 18,900 Rwanda francs, and 25,200 Rwanda francs for 20 kilos of gas. These prices will be reviewed after a month. The percentage of people using gas to cook in 2016 was 2.4% and 5.6% at the beginning of last year. The government's goal is to reduce the percentage of those who use things like charcoal and firewood from 79% to 42%. Now let's also bring you an announcement from the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning pursuant to the Cabinet Resolution of 14th December 2021. The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning informs taxpayers with taxable plots of land the following. The 2021 land tax will be paid using the same tax rate of 2020. The deadline of December 2021 for payment of 2021 land tax is extended to 31st of January 2022. The new land tax rates will be announced in 2022 to be applied for land tax due in December 2022, and as was communicated last year, taxpayers who paid extra land tax in 2020, the extra tax paid will be deducted from 2021 tax, and this will be calculated during declaration of the 2021 tax. It was done at Kigali on the 15th of December 2021 and signed by Dr. Uziel Ndajimana, the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning. To health matters now, pediatricians in Rwanda say they've continued to face a number of challenges in their profession, including the fact that they are still very few and in limited numbers of specialists and inadequate medical equipment. The statements were made at the start of a two-day conference of the Rwanda Pediatric Association. Let's now hear from Betty Mutoni.
Corette Niyitegeka is a mother of twins, but her pregnancy was originally of quadruplets, and unfortunately 4 of her babies died in the womb, and the doctors were forced to operate her to save her life and the remaining 2. They were born prematurely at just 29 weeks, weighing 500 grams and 1.2 kilograms respectively.
Sinigize rero mbiteganya cyangwa ngo mbitekereze ko nahita nsama.
I never expected to become pregnant, let alone conceiving quadruplets. I was told that 3 remaining and urged to be careful. I was happy that I was going to be a mother, but also scared because I had not planned of 3 babies.
Ku ruhande rumwe hari ibyishimo ariko ku rundi ruhande mfite ubwoba.
She continued saying that caring for premature babies is not easy.
Abana baba premature ni bumvuga baragora.
Premature babies are difficult to care for because they need more attention than anyone else. And then there is a fear that the mother feels, making it all the more difficult.
Hambaye kurengeje uko abandi.
Dr. Emmanuel Rusingiza, a pediatrician at CHUK, noted that the newborn babies less than 28 days old are the most vulnerable.
Newborns are in the class of vulnerable humans, because they cannot, act themselves to find what is needed for their survival. So they need special attention and particular support. They need to find appropriate facilities to help them. But I also mentioned the skills to be able to provide appropriate care to these newborn who are in need.
Some of the new challenges newborn babies face, which is most cases that cause infant mortality, include the fact that there are times when a baby is born and the brain is dehydrated, as well as the baby prematurity. The statistic shows that 42% children who die before the age of 5 do so within the first 28 days of their life. Factors that contribute to this include inefficient medical equipment, not enough pediatric specialists, and more. The two-day scientific conference organized by Rwanda Pediatric Association is looking into this and other matters.
We have challenges on human resource part. Enough human resource, well trained, somehow well specialized, and enough to be able to cover all hospitals. But also we have challenges in equipment. We continue to advocate for specialized equipment for management of newborn children, especially when they are very sick. And when they have what we call comorbidities or other chronic disease.
The Rwanda Pediatric Association has 107 members and only 2 of them are pediatric specialists. Betty Mutoni reporting for RTV News.
Thanks very much, Betty Mutoni, for that report. Now, Rwanda's Private Sector Federation will soon sign an agreement with the DRC's private sector that will help both sides better utilize the opportunities for greater cooperation between the 2 countries that has been present.
For the first time ever, representatives from the DRC's private sector are attending the Rwanda International Trade Fair here in Kigali, something they see as a great opportunity for their business activities.
When there's a problem, we sit down together and resolve it. There are good relations between Rubavu and Goma, between Rwanda and the DRC, and that is evident by the cross-border trade.
We bring in our goods with no problems and sell them here in Rwanda. People here don't discriminate against us, and so we're happy about the existing relations between the 2 countries.
Tunashukuru sana wakuu wa viongozi ya nchi yote mbili.
We commend both our presidents for agreeing to make it easier for traders like us to work with our counterparts.
Kuwa na uhusiano mzuri na wenzake wachuruzi.
Cross-border trade activities between Rwanda and the DRC are quite robust, with a recorded 50,000 people crossing their shared border between Goma and Gisenyi every day to do business before the COVID-19 pandemic broke out.
L'opportunité est là.
The opportunities are there, and so we cannot waste them. We feel very strongly about the agreement we are going to sign with our counterparts in the Rwanda Private Sector Federation.
Nous et les opérateurs économiques du Rwanda.
Officials in Rwanda's Private Sector Federation agree that this is not something they would easily pass up either. In 2019, we started working closely with the DRC's Federation of Enterprises, and now we have got to the point of signing an agreement with them, which will facilitate trade between both sides. Their towns and cities love our products, and so now they want to make their products popular here as well, creating a trade partnership that is beneficial to both sides. Rwanda and the DRC have been actively working to boost bilateral cooperation, especially increasing trade between their nations.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for the privilege of your time. God bless you and keep you, and see you soon.